The first step towards the next part of the sea creature sculpture is to prime the surface of your work. This is going to cover like all the paper mache, newspaper texture, and visual things so that you just have a nice surface for painting. Now, I'm going to use something called gesso, which is a really nice artist primer to then just be able to paint on top of. It's real thick and just like a solid white. This isn't a common material to have, so some other things that you may have around the house that you could work would first be Kills, which is what you would use to prime a wall before painting it to cover up the paint that might already be on a wall, or just sort of prep a wall for painting. So that's a pretty common thing that a lot of people have around their houses, or even just like a white or a light gray or something like that. Interior paint would work as well. Now that is really messy to use, so make sure you take care of your work surface if you're working with something like this. Another thing you could use is just acrylic paint. Now this isn't like a student artist acrylic paint that's just white, if you have something like that around, but this is a craft acrylic paint that could be used for the same purpose. This particular one is black, which I wouldn't suggest for priming. You would want to work with white, but these are pretty cheap, just this craft acrylic paint that you could pick up at Walmart or Michael's or something like that, and I would just recommend getting white if you're going to work with this. If you don't have any material to be able to prime your work, you don't have gesso, which most people don't keep that around, or you don't have one of the other more common things to have around, like just some interior primer paint or interior just regular wall paint would work. You can skip this step, but priming it will give it a little bit nicer surface for working on with when you go to add your surface design. When you're priming the surface of your work, you're really just looking to get a good solid layer of the paint, whatever paint it is that you're using, whether it's gesso or house paint or whatever. You're just looking to get a good solid layer of it all over your piece. As you're working on it, you want to hunt for any kind of like nooks and crannies where the paint might not fully cover it just with a first pass over. For example, here I've got just a little place where the newspaper is sort of sticking up. So I'm going to take a pass at it the other way. So I'm just sort of switching directions with my brush, going up and down, side to side, to really make sure that every area of my work gets fully covered with this primer layer to help me be ready for the paint. I'm not going to worry so much about painting all the way onto the bottom of my piece. I'm going to just come like a little bit around the corner because the base of mine isn't really meant to be seen, so I'm not super worried about getting that painted all the way. I'm just going to come around the edge just a little bit to make sure that the side of it is actually covered. So I've added a layer of the primer gesso all over the whole surface. I really kind of rotated it and looked at it from every direction so that I can make sure that I didn't miss any like big places. And then just use that gesso to sort of smooth everything out that I could, and now this is ready to dry. Now, just like with the paper mache, I really want it to have some airflow around it so it doesn't just get stuck to the newspaper that I'm setting it on. You can see already it's not even drying yet, but it's kind of gluing itself to the newspaper, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is just take some little stands to set it on so that it can dry laying down, but with airflow all around it. And then once this is dry, it'll be ready for the next step of the project.